All right. Hello, parents, families, caregivers. Dr. John McNaught again. This is the third in a 3-video series on self-determination at home. And in this video, we're going to explore the idea of relatedness. And so just as a brief reminder, resources available on undetermined.org for educators, parents, and youth. Tons of tools, strategies, and videos on self-determination and different experiences for different families, youth, and educators. So again, the elements of Undetermined are the kind of the foundation for these videos. And we've talked about how we develop the skills of choice-making, decision-making, and problem-solving, which then lead to the abilities of goal setting, self-regulation, and self-advocacy, which then ultimately lead to the belief that the individual has control of their life, understands what their ability and strengths are in different situations, and basically, just a general self-awareness. Today, in this video, we're going to talk a lot about, specifically about goal setting. So we take those foundational elements of Undetermined, we filter them through autonomy, competence, and now relatedness, right? And that leads to successful outcomes for students with disabilities and provides the resources and the supports we need to support self-determined behaviors. So in this particular video, we'll talk about relatedness. So what does it mean? How can we support it? What are some tools that we can use? And then we'll also explore some parent perspective, a parent perspective, and some youth perspectives as well. So relatedness is simply the feeling of a sense of belonging. So whether that's belonging to your family, your community, your classroom, your school, relatedness is essential. In fact, if you look at some of the data around high school dropout, the number one reason that students in the United States drop out of high school is not because they're failing, it's because they do not feel that they have a connection to their school. And that's a pretty powerful data point. The other interesting data point on that is that it only takes one caring adult to establish that feeling of relatedness. And so think about how powerful relatedness is, but yet how so simple it is potentially to facilitate. And so what are the elements of Undetermined? Self-efficacy, goal setting and attainment, and self-awareness. And so as I said earlier, we'll talk a lot here about goal setting. And how do we do it? So inclusive practices, inclusive opportunities. We talked a lot about disability awareness in the competence video, so I won't stress that one as much, but know that it is just as important. We'll talk mostly in this video about the goal plan, but also know that the one-pager that we talked about on the autonomy section is also a great way to foster relatedness, specifically around interests and strengths. So inclusive practices and inclusive opportunities. I am a strong proponent that students with disabilities need to be educated with their non-disabled peers. And so, as a first-year teacher 20-something years ago, first-year special education teacher, I was put in charge of a self-contained classroom for students with emotional disabilities. And it did not take me long to realize that that was not the appropriate service delivery model. So I'm a huge proponent of inclusion, inclusive practices, inclusive opportunities. Do I think that students with disabilities might need to be pulled out at certain times for certain things? Absolutely. That's the special part of special education. But I also believe that a lot of those services can be implemented in a general education classroom. And so we'll talk a lot about that as we progress. Before we get into specific tools, I want to share this parent perspective on relatedness and his experiences with Undetermined, and then we'll dig into that a little bit.
What do you feel the project has done for all of you as a family, and specifically for Ben?
Confidence is the number one thing. Ben has shown much greater confidence. He's always had some ability to go before a crowd, to speak what's in his mind, to sing or play an instrument or act. But now he understands the value of it much more, because he can see in the people he's speaking to through the I'm Determined program how it works. He sees how interacting with others is something that can move him forward in the world in a way that is positive, by helping others, by helping himself, and by simply being determined. The title itself is the best part. Being determined is something that is a state of mind, and Ben is there. And I think that Mrs. Allen and I thank you for helping him get there. We were telling him what to do, but we're his parents, and he can ignore a lot of those things after a while. But having the I'm Determined program there to add another degree of organization, to add emphasis to the things that we had tried to teach him as parents, has been a real godsend. The biggest fear that we have had as parents is, how do we get him out of the house? How do we get him into college? How is he going to do out in the world by himself, finding his way from point A to point B? Well, I'm not worried about a thing, I'll tell you that right now. He's going to do great. And part of it is because the enhanced skills that are emphasized in the I'm Determined program have given him the solid basis for getting out and staying determined to accomplish anything he wants to accomplish. And he will. He'll accomplish anything he wants to accomplish, I have no doubt.
So at the time of that video, Ben, who's a young man on the autism spectrum, was a junior in high school. Since then, he has graduated both with a bachelor's and a master's degree in history, and is currently working in a museum. His special interest was U.S. military history, and he was also an uncanny artist. I mean, he would sketch these historical battle scenes with such accuracy that it was amazing. And so what Undetermined helped provide Ben was the relatedness, the feeling of a community, the skills on how to, when you're in a new environment, in a new place, how to form or become a part of a new community. And so one way we accomplish this is through goal setting. This is the Undetermined goal plan. Again, another foundational tool of the project. I again suggest as parents or family members or caregivers that you create one as well. I always have one filled out for myself. So does my wife. So do my kids. You'll notice that's a trend. It helps kind of, for me, guide me and keep me motivated throughout. And so what does it look like? Simply goal. What's one of your goals? It can be short term. It can be long term. And then the next component is what are the steps you need to take to reach it? And so think of that as kind of your action plan, followed by who can support me. So that's the relatedness piece. That's the community piece. Who are my people, right? And I'm going to have different people depending on what my goal is. And then the outcome. So what's the point? Why are we going for this goal? What are we going to get out of it? And so the outcomes is the motivational piece. All right, why am I doing this? So this is Betsy's. Betsy's goal is to graduate from RCC, which is the local Rappahannock Community College. She knows she needs, in order to achieve that goal, she needs to go to class, she needs to do her assignments, she needs to study, and ultimately apply for graduation. People who that can support her, herself, her parents, and her professors. And then why? Why is this goal important to her? Why does she, how is she going to stay motivated? She wants to move on to a 4-year university. She wants to move out of her parents' house, and she wants to make more money. And so, again, this is just another, reminder, motivator, tool to help folks focus in on what they want and understand that it takes a plan to get there. Before we get into our youth perspectives, I think it's important as parents that we understand it is not our job to pass judgment on the goal, right? So you might say, well, what if my son or daughter comes up with an unrealistic goal? So I will tell you this is my experience and why I truly believe in not passing judgment on the goal. I'm going to help whoever I can, put the supports in place to meet their goal. So I had a student, my first couple years teaching, who wanted to play pro football. And he was a 16-year-old at the time, and he was probably 5'1", and he was probably 100 pounds soaking wet. And, my initial response is, that's a stupid goal, that you're not going to do this. And I knew if I said that he'd write me off and I'd no longer be part of his community, and I didn't want that. And so I said, okay, well, let's come up with a plan. Let's figure this out. And I said, are you currently playing football? And he said, no. I said, okay, well, I've never heard of anyone make it to the NFL who didn't play high school football. Maybe they're out there, but I've never heard of them. So we made a plan to play high school football. And so I asked him what he thought his first step was, and he said, well, we should go talk to the coach. And so, I had a history with the coach who, had always helped me out with students in the past. And so I said, hey, Ryan's going to come talk to you about joining the team. Can you set him up for what he needs to do? And, he said, sure, absolutely. And so Ryan met with the coach. He came back and reported to me that coach said that, it's the off season right now. And so the weight room's open and he expects people to be in there at 6 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so I thought to myself, well, great, this is our out. Ryan will realize that this is an unattainable goal and we'll move on to something else. And he went on to say that, so he set me up with an upperclassman who's going to pick me up and bring me to the weight room. So I thought, okay. A month or two go by, and Ryan is reporting to the weight room every day, or every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. His self-esteem is increasing. He's looking great. He's got a new group of friends. He's feeling good about himself. His grades are improving. And I'm starting to get nervous because I'm thinking, oh man, how am I going to break to this kid that he's not going to make it to the NFL? Ryan sticks with it all the way up until it's the day they're handing out equipment. And in our school at the time, seniors go first, and he was a sophomore, so he, second to last, only ahead of the freshmen. And he's standing in line, and some of the seniors are walking out, and this particular class had some really, really big boys, and these seniors are walking out with their shoulder pads on, and they look twice as big as they did before. And he realizes pretty quick that he doesn't think he wants to get involved in the hitting aspect of football. And so he comes up to me the next day and says, I don't think I want to play football after all. And part of me was like, thank God. I don't have to, break to this kid that he's not going to make it to the NFL. And I looked at him and said, all right, well, let's come up with a new goal, man. And the best part was, right, and this was the point that really was my light bulb moment, is that he was comfortable coming to me and saying, you know what, I think I want to change my goal, and you're someone I can trust because you supported me in this venture, in this goal setting, journey so far. Whereas if I had just told him, hey man, the NFL is stupid, it ain't going to happen, there goes our relationship. And so, I'm a big proponent of, let the student set the goal. I'm going to set a legitimate action plan and let them come to the conclusion of whether or not it's a realistic goal or not. Let's hear from Annie.
Before I started with Undetermined, I felt like I was the only person with a learning disability, and I felt kind of dumb, and I had really low self-esteem, and I felt like I did not belong. And I got to the point where I believed that trying and failing was worse than not trying at all. Some things that my parents did to help me was bringing me to Undetermined. This is a great opportunity for students and to get to see other people who have the same struggles that they do. Some things that were not very helpful was when my parents would look at our report cards comparing me and my siblings, and my grades were not the best, but I tried really hard, and so I kind of wish that my parents would have looked at how hard I tried overall instead of the final letter grade, especially because my siblings always got A's without really trying, and I had to put in so much more effort than they did. So those are just a few things.
And let's hear from Betsy and then Caden.
For me, it was hard because I grew up in a very small town. I did not know. I don't think I knew anybody in my high school that had dyslexia. I was the only girl in my IEP class. There was 8 of us, and I was the only girl out of 7 guys through high school. So right when I got in, I was the only girl until I graduated from high school. I don't think I ever, did any, ask anybody about it. But my parents told me, from the very beginning, even though I was in that IEP room and I had an IEP, it didn't make me less of a person, at all. I was still a human being. I still meant something. I was just different. And that's okay to be different than everybody else. And it's okay for your child to feel different. I think it's good to be different. If we were all the same, it would be the most boringest place in the whole entire universe. I don't think that having a disability makes you less. It makes you more than a person because you get to tell everybody, I've been through it all. I've seen so many things and I've done so many things and I've worked my butt off. And now I have a paper or a certificate or something to prove that I've done this. So I don't think that there's anything you can really do except for just keep pushing your child and letting them know that they mean something and how much you love them. So.
Okay, and lastly, we'll hear from Caden.
So something that I really struggled with for a long time before Undetermined was feeling alone. I always was just trying to just be in existence. I just went up to my room and I played video games, I did my homework, and that was about it. I had nightly homework battles with my parents and how they told me that you need to do this. I know you can do this. And with that, it was very difficult to having my self-esteem saying that I can do this and having your parents believe in you, even though it is super difficult to do. I was very lucky to have parents that would show me that, hey, you got this. Even though that this may be difficult, you're going to get through this and you're going to come out a better person.
All right, so let's look at some themes, some thoughts on relatedness. First one is just opportunities outside of school. School can be a trying place for a student with a disability. And the more opportunities we can find outside of school, the better. I've worked with students in urban areas, students in rural areas. I live in a rural area. It could be as simple as, looking at the one pager, looking at strengths and interests, and, trying to do something on the weekend that's hitting a strength or an interest. And then, as much as possible, getting involved in inclusive community groups. And so whether that's, sports for Annie, or, I know Caden at one point joined a video game group. A lot of times churches can provide those opportunities. Betsy, as Betsy talked about, she was in a very, rural area, and she was, the only girl in her special education class. And so for her, her escape was horseback riding, and she's a worker. And so her parents supported her in getting a job at one of the local restaurants pretty early on. And so just looking, what does your community have, and what are some opportunities for your son and daughter to get involved? Second is just having an awareness of your own or your child's strengths and what their goals are, and helping them achieve them. And so I know when I don't have a goal that I'm working on, I feel a little bit, like I don't have a purpose, or I'm just a little bit kind of floating out there. And so, a goal really focuses me. And so, I prefer to have, a couple short-term goals and then a long-term big picture goal. I remember having one of these conversations. I was asked by a colleague to facilitate a goal plan meeting, and she had a daughter. She has a daughter with more significant support needs, and I said, sure, I'd be happy to. And I worked with the daughter and came up with a goal plan, and then sat down with mom and daughter and had a discussion. And one of the things on the goal plan was, the daughter wanted to live alone. The daughter wanted to not live at home and get a roommate in an apartment, and also wanted to find a man. And so I had made the faulty assumption that they had talked about these things before, and realized when I saw the mother's face when we talked about this, that no, they had not had that discussion. In fact, the mom's perspective was that her daughter was going to live with her forever, and that she had, no desire for roommates, let alone a boyfriend. And so, it was awkward at the time, but honestly, a great conversation starter for, okay, wow, so we need to put some supports in place if this is what you want. And that kind of goes with those high expectations, right? If your son or daughter has a goal, we're gonna support that goal. We're gonna have high expectations. We're going to, get through K-12 schooling. That is just, one stop along the journey. And that's why I chose these 3 youth leaders, because they've all made it through K-12. And so I find their perspective important. And, they also talk about the feeling of just loneliness, thinking they're the only ones with a disability. And so in all my work with Undetermined, I can't tell you how many times I've met a kid who thinks they're the only kid in the world with cerebral palsy or dyslexia or Down syndrome. And it's so important for them to understand at an early age that while we're all unique individuals, they are certainly not the only one. And there is absolutely a disability community. There's disability-specific communities. And that's an important support network. Now, it doesn't need to be the only support network, but it is an important one. And one thing that sticks with me, especially through Undetermined, is this look on their faces when they realize that they're not alone. And so, I think as a parent, being so cognizant of that and making it a point to tell them that you're not alone. And, through, whether it's through Undetermined or some other network, with the advances in technology, there's absolutely no reason to feel alone right now. So I would say, one of the biggest takeaways for your son or daughter is to let them know they're not the only one. They're not the first. They won't be the last. And share with them some success stories of other folks who have had similar, struggles similar or disabilities similar as to what they have. Well, I appreciate you sticking with me through this 3-video series. Again, our website, undetermined.org, has tons of resources. There's also a Contact Us tab. If you have any questions, you can just click on that and email any of the folks on that Contact tab, and we're more than willing to help you. We know each family has their own specific journey, their own specific barriers that they face, and so please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Thank you.